Mr. Anderson.
Well, I also would thank you, Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor Connolly and members of council. Point out this is oddly enough the first time I've had to do a formal presentation to you, so bear with me on that. I am Greg Anderson. I'm chair of the Falls Church City School Board. We do have several other members here tonight. Our vice chair, Shauna Russell, Laura Downs, Sue Dimmick, and Lawrence Webb are here, and others were here but have had to leave, so I thank you guys for coming out tonight. Tonight I do have the honor of presenting to you the school board's advertised budget for the fiscal year 2021, and it's a relatively brief presentation, and then we'll be happy to do questions from there. I always like to start a presentation where I'm representing a group of people by thanking at least the senior folks of that group of people, and so I would like to take a moment to say thank you to Dr. Noonan and his team, especially our Chief Operations Officer, Kristen Michael, and our Director of Budget and Finance, Michelle Kopek, who are here, and point out that we have a significant number of the senior staff for the schools here, and thank you very much for coming. Fiscally prudent budget that meets our schools' needs while remaining within the council guidance, and meeting the spirit of our revenue sharing framework that we've had. Also want to thank my colleagues on the board who engaged quite a bit and lots of questions, thorough commentary about the budget development, and then all of the staff and parents and community members and all the others who have given us input along the way. It's been a long and thorough process. So our fundamental mission is to provide to each of our students the highest quality public education we can with the resources available to us. And my mission tonight is to describe to you how our budget request would support that. Starting with our vision statement, which is summarized here on the screen, and I won't take the time to read it, you all can do that. But I will point out that below that, there are some division level goals that the board has approved for the year, and they summarize a lot of what you will see coming up in the presentation. IB for all, so the International Baccalaureate framework underlies all of the instructional practices for our schools. And when we say IB for all, we really mean all, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. Another goal for the division is caring community and culture, and this is really focusing on the social and emotional needs of our students, our staff, our community at large, and then closing gaps. We're committed to equity and inclusion to meet their own particular needs for their best success. And I want to point out that for some groups, that means providing more deliberately than to groups that otherwise don't need that level of support. This is all tied to our divisional triennial plan, which underlies all of that work. And as a highlight, I just want to point out the board has decided we want to make diversity, equity, and inclusion a focus for our work over the coming year, and we're going to be having more conversation about that at a work session coming up on March 17th. So for the public and anybody else who'd like to come and hear more, that would be an opportunity. So with that background, I just want to share some successes we've had along the way in meeting that vision and meeting those goals. We have not a lot of time. We could spend a long time up here talking about this, so I'm just going to pick some selected highlights. So first, I want to present some data that's come out of comparisons with FCCPS and the state on college and career readiness. The figure here, the chart on the left side, shows the distribution of the types of diplomas and certificates that have earned by students in the 2019 school year in the state at the top and our schools at the bottom. The main thing I want to point out is that last year for our schools, 72% of the students that graduated in our schools graduated with an advanced diploma, as opposed to just over 50% statewide. 100%. And that is compared to just under in the state. There's about 5.6% of a dropout rate statewide. So we know all of our students. We know they all graduated. How did we do on another measure of success? And I only want to say this is just one measure because standardized testing is one measure, but not the only one for this. To point out the standards of learning pass rates for 2018-2019, the state numbers there for the various 5 various categories that are in that, and then our school's success rate, pass rate there. And I'd like to point out for the first time in the last 4 years, all of our pass rates for all of the SOL assessments, 90% plus. So that's a real success. One piece of improvement in that number, it's in there, is the math curriculum improvement for SOL has been particularly noteworthy. A lot of work from our math coordinator, Jen Fessenden, who's made a lot of work into that. But there is also room for improvement, particularly in language arts, and that's a bit of foreshadowing to come up. So I said earlier, IB for all. It really does mean all. Just like to point out for us, the IB framework underlies instruction throughout the schools. It starts with the primary years program, the PYP, and all the way up through 5th grade, and then moves. Every one of our students in elementary and middle school goes through that instructional framework, through that program. So that's that 100% there on the left. Once you get to your junior year, you have a choice you can make. You can either pursue a full IB diploma, or you can continue in another track that leads to an advanced diploma or a standard diploma and take IB courses that you choose. Last year, 86% of our juniors and 87% of our seniors enrolled in at least one IB course, and we also had 47 students go all the way through and earn a full IB diploma last year. That's quite a rigorous 2-year curriculum to get that IB diploma. Starting with having to get up pretty early in the morning to talk about the theory of knowledge in a really wonderful course, but that's quite an accomplishment for our students to achieve that level. I'd like to point out Wednesday night there is an opportunity if you want to see some of this year's middle years program results. The students are going to present their personal project showcase at George Mason from 7 to 8 o'clock. There's also International Night that precedes that from 5:30 to 7. So come and have some good food and see what our students have been up to. And then a little bit of highlights on some other things. And again, I like pictures, so here are my pictures. We have had quite a range of Jane Henderson students who went to the MathCon National Championship in Chicago. Alex, a student up there in the red shirt in the top, won the gold medal. So that was pretty cool. Every year our seniors wrap up their educational experience with externships. And last year, a couple of our seniors got to go to work at Save the Children and happened to run into Jennifer Garner while they were there. So that was kind of cool. Our Give Day, our students, the pun here is our students give back. Our Give Day ambassadors at Henderson, the Give Day Club raised over $10,000 this year to pack 33,000 meals to go to Madagascar for people who need help. And our Give Day ambassadors at TJ spent Martin Luther King Day assembling power packs of food for local families right here in Falls Church, household items for the Home Stretch program, and also working on the lovely mosaic that's out there in the entry to City Hall. And then in the lower right, most recently, our girls basketball team at the high school were Region 3B champions this year and competed in the state championship. Very proud of them for getting to that point. And then one that's not shown, but I'll just take a moment of privilege to say that the George Mason Wind Ensemble competed at the District 10 Band Assessment last Friday night and received unanimous superior ratings, playing the top level of music that one can play on for, but we don't really have an infinite amount of time, so we won't do that. Another area of success, and this one I really want to point out, with continued partnership from you, from our community, and the support of a lot of folks involved, construction on the new George Mason High School continues on schedule and on budget. The figure on the left shows what it's going to look like when it's completed. And the figure on the right shows basically what it looked like just a few days ago. There are a variety of cameras. If folks want to watch the construction, you can do that live on the web. And this is one of the new cameras that's been put up to show you what is effectively the front of the building to come. On February 22nd, several of the people here in the room had the opportunity to sign the last steel beam for the main frame of the building before it was lifted into place with a traditional topping out ceremony, complete with the tree and the flag. For those who are interested in the tradition of topping out ceremonies, that dates back to the idea of thanking the forest for giving us the wood that we need to build our buildings. We remain on track for a December 2020 move-in and the start of classes at the new high school in January of 2021. And again, we thank you for your partnership and support in being able to carry that out. Another shared success that we've had with the general government is what we'll call here prudent fiscal management based on what's called the local composite index, determine how much money school divisions in Virginia receive from the Commonwealth versus from local sources. Falls Church has the highest local composite index possible of 0.8, which means that we depend on local sources for the vast bulk of our funding. Because of that, we know that we also have a serious responsibility, and we take it very seriously, to ensure that we're meeting our school needs, but also being prudent stewards of the taxpayer money, and asking for what we need, but not asking for too much. Two figures here to demonstrate how we've been able to do that over the last decade. On the left, in the blue, is the growth in student enrollment from 2011 to last year, and that's an increase of 24%. On the same percent scale, so that ranges are actually comparable, in orange is shown the inflation-adjusted per pupil cost over the same period of time. 24% increase in students, the per pupil cost is essentially flat. So as Mr. Shields alluded to, we are doing more with the same and paying a lot of attention to this. If you prefer to think in nominal dollars and not in inflation-adjusted dollars, on the right is a figure that's showing a comparison for our per pupil spending growth over the last decade compared to the other jurisdictions. I just wish to point out that we are the fourth lowest in that region. So we've been able to carry out this success with a lot of careful attention and a lot of helpful partnership and support on behalf of the council, so thank you. So moving on to the 2020 budget, I would just like to point out everything that I'm about to show you is available on the web at fccps.org/budget. It all comes together into a book that's I don't know, 200 or 300 pages getting at this point. And it represents a lot of work, just as for Mr. Shields and Ms. Bawa and the city government and the city staff. This is a long development process that started for us back in the summer of 2019. School board received information beginning in the fall about enrollment, more details about what the budget request was probably going to be looking like. And then in early December, we met together for our joint discussion of the budget and received your guidance as to the budget, increase that council wanted us to consider. On January 14th, Dr. Noonan presented his proposed budget to the school board, and since then we've had a series of meetings and work sessions to discuss this in a great deal of detail. And on February 18th, we voted to adopt the budget that I will present to you tonight. Starting with this and the general categories of expenditure in the budget request that we have for you. 81% of the requested revenues in our budget come from local sources. As I mentioned, the LCI sets that as a fairly high number. We do have some good news out of the Commonwealth. The amount of money that we expect to get from the state has gone up fairly significantly this year and now makes almost 15% of the budget revenues that are coming in. The remaining 3.6% is made up of federal sources and fees, other sorts of things. And in the end, the total budget request is the total budget amount that is necessary to support is $54,594,282. Now, the city transfer that's listed there is based on prior to knowing what the actual amount of the funding that was going to be available based on the revenue sharing framework. So that's a little bit lower than what Mr. Shields just presented you, but the difference is because we have had a higher revenue that came in than we expected to have. So, on the right side, you see our basically where the money would go, and education is driven by people. That's represented here. The biggest part of our budget request, over 86%, is salaries and benefits for our staff. The remaining just under 14% goes to contract. Our total budget request is up total budget is up 4.4% relative to last year, and the total city transfer is up in this request. 3.1 was the original guidance number, but 3.3 being what's available at this point, as Mr. Shields pointed out. And the board has set basically two main areas of priority. that I want to highlight for you. Priority one is employee compensation. Our people make the successes possible that I showed you earlier, and investing in our team is the board's top priority. There's two categories of employee compensation that I want to highlight in here. The items in blue are in some